In this lesson, we're going to look at inputting the bass part for our Task 3C project. Now already the piece is quite full, but by the time you add the bass part into this, it's just going to be so lush and so thick with texture that it's going to be amazing. And it gives us an opportunity to add to the rhythm section as well and actually add a bit more interest to our rhythm section. Now how I've started this is I've just built it up. So I've left the intro with no bass part and the first verse with no bass part, and then I've included the bass here with this very simple pattern that you can see here, and then I've developed it. Now how I've kind of done this is I've used this initial bass pattern. So if you've done your planning well, you should have all your chords laid out. Now the idea with the initial bass pattern is to take the root note of each chord and put that into some kind of simple rhythm, okay? So the rhythm that I'm going to use just to start it off with is this kind of idea that just goes dum, 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 and so on, okay? So as you can see here, my verse chords are A minor, C, and so on. So we have our A note, our C note, and our E note, okay? So, and that reflects what's going on there. So just to start, put the root note of each chord down and create a rhythm that suits your piece. Once you've got that in, just copy and paste these into each of the sections, okay? Now, as you move through, just change the chords to meet the requirements of that particular section. So as you can see in my chorus, I've got C, G, D, and E minor. So C, G, D, E minor. Okay, so you can see that they are the root notes. And I've kept the rhythm the same for this one. I might develop that a bit later on, but for now that it's okay. We are going to keep developing it as the piece kind of moves on. However, I knew by the time I got to my second chorus that I would definitely improve this and I would need that rhythm from the bass to kind of enhance what was going on. Now, something really interesting here, how I've done this, is you can see that I've kept this pattern the same, and it was the same here. But what I've done is I've taken one of my other parts. Now, the part that I've taken the rhythm from on this one is this world clav part. So if you press shift click, what you'll get, as long as you've got the bass part selected as well, is you'll get both of those instruments on the same layer. Now if we just zoom in, I move the playhead into position, I go and get my scissor tool, and then I just move it along. So here's the next note, and then I put a cut in my bass. Okay, and then move it along again and put another cut in my bass. Move it along again. I didn't use that one. Move it along again and put another cut. As you can see, I'm just using these first two lines. I've ignored this second line here. Because it's still developing, on the second bar I have kept it the same as the original. And the reason for that is when I get to my bridge, let's move on to the bridge and select this, is I want to improve, I want to kind of develop this rhythm even further. Now the part that I've chosen for this particular rhythm is this world bongo. So if I shift click on the world bongo and then zoom in again, you'll see that all of my cuts are based on this bottom line, okay? So you see? So I haven't completely copied the whole thing. I've added an extra one there. I haven't completely copied the whole thing, but I wanted the two rhythms to match. Because the idea with the bass is it is part of the rhythm section, so it's really important that yes, you've got these low notes happening that thicken the texture, but you've also got that rhythm part happening as well, and they really must gel, okay? There's only one other part that I still need to do, and that's kind of add transition notes between the two chords. Keeping it with just the root chord can get a little uninteresting. A basic rule of thumb with bass guitar is roots and fifths, okay? Those kind of really work quite well. So if you're moving, if you want to change these notes between roots and fifths, you know, you can experiment with that. So you could just, if it's on, what chord we got here? We've got an A minor chord, so the notes of our fifth here is going to be this E note. So if you wanted to kind of move this up, so you can press Alt and click it up to the E, and you could experiment with kind of shifting around to roots and fifths. The technique that I quite like is what you can see here, which is a transition note, okay? The transition note I've used here is the C, which is the third of this A minor. So it just kind of drops onto the A minor. And at the end of each bar, I'll probably just put this little transition note just so it glides into it, and it just makes it ever so slightly more interesting. But that's the kind of thing that you can do, and you need to keep developing that further. One thing I do want to say before I kind of let you guys get on with your own bass parts, is if you are a bass guitarist or a bass player of some description, feel free to play this part in using an audio track rather than a MIDI track. For me, it just works really well to do it as a MIDI track. But if you want something to write about in your log, put it in as an audio part, because remember, for this brief, you can use everything, and you should be using everything: MIDI, samples, audio, synthesis, the works, okay? So the more you can talk about, actually, I went down this route, the better it will be, okay? And it will give you that much more power, more depth to it if you're using an instrument that you're more than capable of doing. Okay, so that's pretty much all I've got to say about the bass part. I'm going to play it to you because I haven't done that bit yet. So let's play this simple part first, see what you think. Over. So there's my initial ideas, and that's just quite a nice little bass to build it up. Then we get to this chorus 2, which is my first development. Keeping one's head pointing towards the sun, one's feet moving forward, one's feet moving forward. And then finally, we just get into this bridge, which is really powerful. I love this bit. Okay, so that's my bass development. Get yours done and put in and sculpted out the way you want it to, and I'll see you in the next lesson.